Welcome to Stanford Brown's Women Talk Wealth podcast, where we talk about life, money, and everything in between. I'm Cris Abellar, a private wealth advisor and partner here at Stanford Brown, and today I'm joined by Emma Woolley, partner and head of private office advisory at Hall Wilcox. A few weeks ago, I was privileged enough to hear Emma speak and present at our International Women's Day event, where she shared some perspectives on leadership, and I was hoping to revisit some of those themes today. Before we do that, though, Emma, could you tell us something about yourself from either professionally and personally?
Thanks, Cris. It's great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me. A bit about me, personally and professionally. I suppose I have been in Australia for 21 years. I'm originally from Jersey in the Channel Islands, which is a very tiny island off the coast of France, which is British. I moved here because I married an Australian and he lured me over here with all sorts of promises, including fine weather, but then we moved to Victoria. I've been with Hall Wilcox the whole time since I've been in Australia. I was practicing law before I came here, but then I had to reset and restart my career in this country. I had to re-qualify, and I also had to start absolutely again. I had to meet people, make a network, build relationships and a technical capability. And it's been a long road, but it's obviously taught me a lot over that period, and I've learned a lot from very many people I've come across in that time. So there's a little bit about me to start with.
Thank you. So some of the key themes that impressed me during your presentation was culture as integral to success, what differentiates an impactful leader, what does representation mean, and leadership in a changing world. So can we start off by talking specifically about how you see culture underpinning the success of an organisation, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Culture is a really important one to me and to my business, Hall Wilcox. We have a really excellent culture, which is very well established, and it's built from values that have evolved over time but been documented as well. And we call them hallmarks, Hall Wilcox hallmarks. It's a bit cheesy, but it is actually something that is lived very much by our people. It's not something that we've put a list of things on a laminated piece of plastic in the kitchen and nobody ever reads them. These things are really important to us. There's 5 of them, and one of those 5 is respect. So important that we actually say it twice. And that's about how we interact with our people, how we interact with our clients, and also importantly our communities, whether that's our communities of clients or generally our communities. And those foundations, those hallmarks, are part of everything we do. They're part of our everyday language. And I think you're right about culture being incredibly important. And from our perspective, it is, as I said before, the foundation of the way in which we conduct ourselves, the way in which we communicate and the way in which we lead. And I think leadership's from a foundation point of view, because if you have people that lead from a cultural perspective, so if they demonstrate those values like respect, being inclusive and empathetic, then people are going to see that and then they're going to follow it. Without that, I don't think you can build that kind of culture successfully unless you have real strong leadership that demonstrates those values, sets that standard by which everybody else will then follow. And it gives them permission to behave like that. It makes it important as well.
Can you talk a little bit about how you see collaboration as part of Hall Wilcox's strategy?
Yeah, it goes back a little bit, Cris, to culture as well. So we have a really strong emphasis on collaboration, and that's across our lawyers, that's across our corporate services, across everyone really. What we're trying to do is encourage people to work together, and as a result, there's greater opportunity for all. So that old classic of 1 + 1 = 3. So we make sure that there are mechanisms that encourage that. So not just about incentivising it, but by making it really important to everybody. So say from a client perspective, if you've got a client relationship, there's a really clear incentive for you to introduce that client to other people within the business for the opportunity to collaborate and get more opportunity for all as a result to get more work out of that relationship. I think we all know how difficult it is to build new relationships and to get more clients. So what we're saying is if we work together, we can actually get more out of those existing relationships without having to put more work in to build new relationships. So we make sure that there's real incentive to collaborate, and that's partly, for example, in the way that we remunerate it as partners. We have a dollar for dollar value is placed on introducing new work and relationships, not just the work that you do, but how you introduce that, and including specifically to other people within the business. So collaboration is really important to the way we work and who we are.
And can you talk a little bit more about trust-based work in your view?
Sure, I think that collaboration aspect is part of that, because the more you work with people, the more you become confident, which leads to trust, and therefore you've got a much greater propensity to share and work with them. So I think that's really important. I think from a trust perspective, a culture of trust and confidence is really important. Otherwise you can get siloed behaviour where people will hold work back and then they're not the right people for doing it, or they might not be the right people to be in that moment or in that piece of work. So I think trusting each other is really important in that. And I think having a culture where it's okay, for example, to demonstrate that you might not have got it quite right, and to be open and honest where you haven't quite got things right, I think is a really good thing. So you can then utilise occasions when things haven't gone to plan as learning experiences, which obviously then builds trust and confidence, because if you're open and honest about, well, I didn't get it right, but here's how we could do it better, I think that would be, it is a really good example of how trust is built, not just in your immediate peers, but also those you might be leading and working with, because if they see that's all right, again, it's setting a standard saying it's okay if you get it wrong, as long as we use it as an opportunity to do things better in the future. So it means that those other people that you're working with feel confident to say, I didn't get it quite right, which means you've got a safer, probably less risky and secure environment, which is good for business overall.
Hall Wilcox being one of the largest law firms nationwide, how do you engender that collaboration amongst the partners, amongst the central services? What are some of the initiatives Hall Wilcox?
Well, you're right. We're a big business and a national business. We've got over 145 partners and 1,300 or so people nationally. So that's a lot of people to ensure that we make the most of the opportunities that there are available for everyone. I think we're a really inclusive business. We're quite transparent. We talk to our people a lot about what we're doing and how we're doing it. So we're not secretive about our leadership aren't secretive in that way. So I think people do feel very much part of the business. We do a lot to make sure that there's an opportunity to collaborate, and we talk about that nationally. But it's hard, and we are a bigger partnership, and we don't have that many opportunities to get together, but we do. This year we had a national partners meeting where we all congregated together in Canberra for a weekend. Our business meeting, collaboration opportunities, time just to spend with each other and catch up and form relationships, which might be difficult to do across geography. So we try and look for opportunities to do those types of things as well.
Yeah. And Emma, can you tell me, in your view, what differentiates an impactful leader, please?
That's a really big one. I think a couple of things, I suppose, would come to mind about my experience. I think people lead best when they're being genuinely themselves, because then that authenticity means people believe them, and then if you've got that kind of belief, then you're more likely to be trusted. And I think you do need trust and confidence to be a leader. I think you do need to have that sort of element of respect for people to follow and to do the things that you expect of them. They've got to trust you and believe you. So I think being genuinely yourself, if you're confident in that, then I think that comes across, and people do warm to that, and therefore feel that you have something to say which is important to them, I suppose. So I think being yourself, my myself, I find over time, I reckon I have changed a lot, but I've always been quite accessible in that I use humour a lot, and it's not for everyone, but the reality is it is me, and it is genuinely me, so it works for me, and I think people do find that, I suppose, inclusive and accessible. A little bit, I think, for sure. I mean, definitely you want to feel that people have confidence in you, and hopefully the use of humour doesn't go the other way. I think the other thing I touched on a little bit before when you asked an earlier question, but that's about contrition, and I think it's really important for people, particularly in leadership, to have the ability to say when they haven't got it right. As I said, it really does set the standard, which I think is important. It's important to demonstrate that you're not always right, but you must be open when you haven't got it right, so that you've got an opportunity to fix it and to learn from it and make better choices down the track, I think. So those are just a couple of things from an impact perspective. I know there's an awful lot else out there that I could say, but I might just limit it to that for now.
And how would you say that Hall Wilcox nurtures leadership within the firm?
We have a really strong emphasis on making sure that we're preparing our future leaders, and that's leaders in our legal business, leaders who support the legal business, so in our corporate services teams as well. We've done this lots of different ways, but as we've got larger, we want to make sure that we had some more structure around that, and we were being really deliberate and thinking about how we might do that for the future. One thing that we have done is introduce a board of emerging leaders. So it's a bit like a shadow board to our main board, our leadership body within our business. The Board of Emerging Leaders is a group which has come together of a cross-section of people from across the business. So they're lawyers who are advancing in their careers, people in our corporate services team who are heading into roles of greater levels of responsibility and leadership, and bring them all together from across the country, from different practice areas and different backgrounds and perspectives. And their job is to, I suppose, work together to bring to the board or to bring to leadership initiatives. We also use them as a sounding board, so to ask them what their perspective might be on things that we might be doing from a broader leadership point of view. They actually have a great networking group as well. They have emerging leaders functions that they have across the country where they bring together people from other organisations so that they can share experience not just from within our business but also outside of our business and build that capacity from a relationship perspective and build confidence generally, which will really make sure that they're equipped to be that next generation of leaders is what we want.
Such a great initiative.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the majority of our audience, I'd say, are women. And I guess I would want to look a little bit about how would you describe, I guess, what representation means without tokenism, I guess.
Yeah, that's a tough one that people have wrangled with over many years. I expect within business is what we want to do is ensure that we reflect our communities to make sure that our business looks like the communities that we work in. So our clients expect us to reflect what they see, and they're much more likely to build good relationships with us if we look like they expect the community to look like. So, but I think that you're right that having quotas can be arguably, well, is that tokenism? I'm not sure I agree entirely on that front. But what I can say is that if you're going to succeed in ensuring that there is diversity and balance within any business, you've got to be really deliberate about it and really work hard at it. And that does require actual structure and really sometimes really structured behaviours and change that you need to impart. it is all very well to say, well, it would be nice if it would be good if we, but we then need to have the actual. So you have to drive this.
It doesn't happen organically.
No, it just doesn't, and it hasn't for a very long time. And we've seen that as experienced. Someone, I'm not like that old, but I can definitely look back and say, well, things have changed over the period of time that I've been in professional practice. It's definitely changed for women over that period. It hasn't changed as quick as I thought or hoped it would be. I didn't think I would still be sitting here talking about these sorts of issues when I'm at this stage in my life and career. And I've got daughters who are entering the profession. I've got a daughter who's entering the legal profession. And I think about, well, what's it going to look like for her in 30 years' time or something like that. But what I can say is that from Hall Wilcox perspective is that we are working hard and deliberately to try and improve things so that our next generation of lawyers and people within our business outside of the legal side of it will see genuine difference. So that includes things like making sure that we have market-leading parental leave policies that apply to everybody. We've introduced and working with a partnership called Grace Papers, which helps people who are coming back to work after spending time outside to look after family. We make sure that we have actual targets for representation in our leadership, and we're meeting those targets, and we're really careful and deliberate about thinking about, well, in the context of these targets, what should we be doing? So lots of opportunity to say it would be good, it would be nice, but it really needs you to actively drive it.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. And thank you for those examples.
Mm-hmm.
And in our ever-changing world, can you speak more about what you see leaders doing in the face of uncertainty, in the face of...
Yeah, it's hard to know which uncertainty you're talking about, Cris, because there's so much going on, whether that's geopolitical uncertainty or...
disruption in the workplace or...
disruption in our workplaces. We've had a significant change in the way that we work in the last 5 years with the change that came about after COVID. We've had now a new frontier of challenge and disruption with the introduction of AI and different technical disruptors within professional services, business within business, within life. I think the AI is changing our lives on a daily basis. And one of the challenges with all of these things is it moves quick, and you've by the time you've sat down to think about, well, what's our response to this, it's too late because the things have moved on. So I think leadership has to be prepared to try things. I think you've got to be prepared to experiment. You've got to have an open mind to these things, and you have to yourself get engaged, because I think the reality is that we can't have leadership that doesn't show up, doesn't participate in pilots, doesn't engage with technology, for example, and rolls their eyes when they're asked to go and do any sort of training on these things, because they'll just be left behind. And again, it doesn't demonstrate that you want your people to be at the forefront. Wouldn't we want them to be ahead of the game rather than waiting to see what happens somewhere else? You don't want to be adopting one particular approach and then finding out that it was not the right one. So I think leaders of today are going to be the leaders of the future as well, and we really need people to be open and open their eyes, and also be prepared to take some risk in this, because the reality is that all of us are taking a risk. We might be investing a particular type of AI tool or strategy which might be redundant in 6 months. So you've got to be prepared to try and really put yourselves behind it, I think. It's a tough time at the moment, but it's also pretty exciting. I mean, my view is that I always want to be moving forward, and you can't go that way unless you're faced that way. And I really think that me and other leaders within our business are really facing forward and embracing the opportunity that might come. With some, trepidation, and we've got an eye on the risk, and we've got an eye on what could and might happen. But at the same time, we're pretty excited by it too.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and life experiences with me today, Emma. You're so respected as an expert practitioner, as well as a leader in your industry and beyond. So I've learnt so much today, particularly regarding what differentiates an impactful leader, what are the characteristics we have and what we could be working towards in the future as well. So thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks, Cris. Great to be with you today.
Thank you.